Hello, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to do a little some triangle problems here where they might not be on the unit circle. So here's what we're going to do. If it tells me that the cosine of an angle is 3/5, what I know is that the adjacent over hypotenuse is 3/5. But they also tell me that I'm in quadrant 4. So I'm just going to draw a triangle in quadrant 4. It doesn't matter really where, there, something like that. If this is my angle T, and I know I'm in quadrant 4, so I'm down here somewhere. Cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse, so 3/5. I have two of the three sides. Now what I'm going to do is find the third side. I can use Pythagorean Theorem, but this is actually a Pythagorean triple. I know it's a 3, 4, 5, so I can just do that in my head. And when I label this, I like to put a minus sign there because in the fourth quadrant, y is negative. So I'm just going to call that a -4. It's important to realize we are not on a unit circle, so the cosine of the angle is not just 3 because it's not over 1, it's 3/5. So the cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. That was my given. Adjacent over hypotenuse is 3/5. Sine is opposite over hypotenuse. So opposite over hypotenuse is -4/5. Tangent is opposite over adjacent, so -4/3. Once you have these, the reciprocals are pretty easy. You just flip them. -5/4, 5/3, and -3/4. So the important things here are you pay very close attention to what quadrant you're in, and you are very aware that you are not on the unit circle. This is a 5-unit circle. This is more just a helper triangle. It's not actually a terminal point on the unit circle. This is just kind of a helper to help you get all these other angles. So that's our first one. Let's try another one. The sine of t is 3/5. So what I'm going to do is, if I'm in quadrant 2, I'm just going to draw a triangle in quadrant 2. This is my angle t, my reference angle here. I'm going to use this as a reference angle and say opposite over hypotenuse, 3/5. Again, this is a 3, 4, 5, so that's 4. And since we're in the second quadrant, x is negative. So I draw a triangle, being very aware that I'm not on the unit circle, but I am in quadrant 2. So the sine is opposite over hypotenuse, 3/5. The cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse, -4/5. The tangent is opposite over adjacent, -3/4. Once you have all the three sides, you're just doing your trig ratios the normal way. Then you flip them, 5/3, -5/4, -4/3, and we're done. That's it. This one's a little fancier. They give me secant is 3, and I'm in quadrant 4. So again, I'll draw a triangle in the fourth quadrant. And I know that the secant is 3. Now, one way that I'll do this is, I'm not super great at knowing secant and knowing everything from secant, but I'm pretty good with cosine. If secant is 3, then the cosine is 1/3. They're reciprocals. So the cosine is 1/3. Now I can kind of start to label my triangle a little differently. You can still do it this way, but cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse, so adjacent over hypotenuse. And for y, I need to do the Pythagorean Theorem. So 1 squared plus y squared is 3 squared. This is 9, and if I subtract 1, I get 8, which you can simplify to 2 radical 2. So y is 2 radical 2. However, you need to be very careful because we are in the fourth quadrant. It is -2 radical 2. This one's going to be a little messier. So let's see if we can work out all the other trig functions now. Sine is opposite over hypotenuse, so -2 radical 2 over 3. And tangent is opposite over adjacent, -2 radical 2 over 1. Okay, fine, over 1. Now, let's take those and do the reciprocals, but I know I'm going to have to rationalize some denominators. So this is -3 over 2 radical 2, and I'm going to rationalize that by giving him a buddy. And this simplifies to -3 radical 2 over, that's 2, and 2 times 2 is 4, so -3 radical 2 over 4. Same thing with cotangent, -1 over 2 radical 2, give him a buddy. -radical 2 over, again, that's 2, and 2 times 2 is 4. So there's my cotangent. When you take the reciprocal of something that has a radical in it, you're going to have to rationalize the denominator. So just be aware, It's not that big of a deal, but something you're going to have to pay attention to. Let's try one more. Tangent is -4. Okay, and what does this mean? I'm being very sneaky here. Cosecant is greater than 0. Cosecant is the reciprocal of sine. So if cosecant is greater than 0, then so is the sine. So the sine is greater than 0. Where is sine greater than 0? Well, sine is y, so it's in one of these two quadrants. And since tangent is negative, tangent's positive over here, I'm in the second quadrant. This is a sneaky way of telling you that I'm in the second quadrant over here somewhere. I'm telling you that sine is positive, and I'm telling you that tangent is negative. The only place that happens is in quadrant 2. So tangent is opposite over adjacent. Wait, why did I write it over here? Tangent is -4 right here. Cotangent then is -1/4. Well, if tangent is -4, then that means I can label this 4 and this 1. 4/1, and it's negative because x is negative in the second quadrant. So if this is my reference angle, opposite over adjacent is -4. One of them has to be negative, and I know that x is negative in the second quadrant. So there's my triangle. Now let's go ahead and find the hypotenuse. 4 squared plus -1 squared is 17. So this is the square root of 17. 16 plus, remember, a negative squared is a positive. So now I have the hypotenuse is 17, radical 17, so I can find sine opposite over hypotenuse is 4 over radical 17. That ain't going to work, so rationalize it. And you get 4 radical 17 over 17. Cosine, -1 over radical 17, rationalize it, and you get negative radical 17 over 17. This one's a lot messier. I know tangent, I know cotangent. To find the reciprocals, you want to work smarter, not harder. You do not want to flip this because then you have to rationalize it. This is where thinking of cosecant as the reciprocal of sine, if sine of an angle is opposite over hypotenuse, then the cosecant of an angle is hypotenuse over opposite. So I'm just going to look at it that way. Cosecant is hypotenuse over opposite, radical 17 over 4. I'm flipping this part, basically. Same thing here, negative radical 17 over 1, which you can just write -17. Because cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse, that means secant is hypotenuse over adjacent, so negative radical 17. Now we have all 6, and we're good to go. So what you need to do is draw a helper triangle, find the missing side, and then label all 6 trig functions. So take your time and make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. Have a good day.